Athena team was also paid a visit at school by NBA legend Erwin Magic Johnson. J-Mac's magic moment won the ESPY for Best Sports Moment at the ESPN Award show later that year. Before I introduce Coach Jim Johnson, here's a short video to show you what happened on that magical night of February 15, 2006.
What we all want in life is a shot. But what we do with it, that's the story we all want to tell.
I've coached for 25 years, and I've never experienced that, the emotional high of what happened.
What happened for Jason McElwain, or J-Mac as his friends call him, is about more than a shot. Diagnosed with autism at 2 years old, now identified as highly functioning, he's never considered himself different or separate, especially when it comes to sports.
Sports has always been, how could I say, his equalizer. He's just like any of the other kids out there.
It's not really a big deal at all. I'm just normal like other people. That's the way I am.
At 5'6", J-Mac didn't make the junior varsity basketball team at his high school, Greece Athena, near Rochester, New York. Instead, he became team manager, a role he now has for the varsity as a senior. In the last 3 years, in his white shirt and black tie, he's missed only one game.
We want to practice. I set up the clock and water the games and be enthusiastic.
As this season was wrapping up, Coach Johnson approached Jason with an idea about the Trojans' final home game of the season.
I said, I'm really going to look to try to get you in the game, but remember, I can't promise you that. And he goes, okay, Coach.
February 15th, Greece Athena against Spencerport, senior night. With word out that Jason might play, the student section printed signs of J-Mac's face, just in case. And with 4:19 left in the game, with the Trojans up by 20, Coach called down to the end of the bench for number 52.
I just kind of turned and pointed at him, and he almost ran right on the court. He was so excited.
Hey, Jay, you got to check in. So he hits the buzzer. He doesn't go anywhere. But now you go on the court. He was so caught up in the moment.
He came into the game, they all stood up and they put the signs, the pictures of him up, and I got really emotional. And I sat down and started crying.
With 3:46 left, Jason got the ball.
When he missed that first three, I was like, oh, and then it airball, and I was like, man, I really just want to see him score one time.
I put my head in my hands, like, dear God, please, just get him a basket.
Then, with 3:12 left, another chance.
That third trip down the court. Magic.
As soon as I started hitting my first shot, I just kept shooting, and I was just hot as a pistol.
Shot after shot after shot kept going in.
The basket was like this big, huge bucket, and I was shooting like they were free throws. This is a big, huge bucket that's like huge.
And I was like, oh my God, is this really happening? He has more points than me, so he's got bragging rights over me.
He was unstoppable for that moment in time. He was unstoppable.
He comes down the court right at the end with like 3 seconds left, and he hits this one that's, probably like an NBA three. As soon as the gun ended, they stormed the court. I couldn't, you just couldn't dream anything like that.
It felt like we won a championship. Yeah, everyone was just so happy for me.
In that 4 minutes, 19 seconds, Jason was 7 for 13, 6 of 10 from three-point range, 20 points in all. In his first and only varsity basketball game, J-Mac was the high scorer.
Truly the most incredible moment I've ever had in coaching. I was so touched. And it was just so special to me that a young man, his dream came true, you know, and that I could help that. It's awesome.
What we all want in life is a shot. J-Mac took his, and now it's a story we can all tell.
Now I'm pleased to welcome Coach Jim Johnson. Jim?
Thank you. Isn't that the essence of teamwork when you shine the light on another teammate? And today, I want to take you through a journey that I think we all need right now of inspiration, with 2020 being a difficult year for many of us. And of course, 2021 is going to have its challenges as well. So my promise today, as we take this journey together, is that number one, I want to focus on the essence of teamwork, that person that finds ways to add value to the team. And number two, the art of perseverance, that never give up mindset that J-Mac exemplified so well. So taking you back, the year was 2003. At that point, I have been the coach at Greece Athena for approximately 7 years, and we have been pretty successful. We have winning records. We have won some division titles, but I had this one big stumbling block in my career, and that was in our postseason tournament, which we call the sectionals. We were struggling. We had never won a sectional championship. In fact, I'd taken 4 different teams to the sectional semifinals, but that's the best we had ever done. Well, in 2003, a young man comes into our program. You saw the story. His name was Jason McElwain. Everybody now knows him as J-Mac. And Jason tried out for our JV team. I was the varsity coach, and Jason's on the autism spectrum. How many people know someone on the spectrum? Because it's pretty prevalent now. At that point, I didn't know much about autism. And Jason was also learning disabled, and he was very small in stature, maybe 5'6", 100 pounds soaking wet. But my JV coach came to me and he said, "Coach, Jason's got this big heart, and I think we should keep him in the program because he loves basketball and he loves the players in our basketball program." I said, "Well, what do you got in mind?" He says, "I'm going to offer him the team manager's job, but I'm also going to let him practice with the team each day." And I got to admit, early in the season, there were some trials and tribulations as J-Mac got used to his new teammates, and his new teammates got used to Jason. But the culture in our program had been quite good. And all of a sudden, I started to see this bond between the JV players and Jason, and I really started to see this love. In fact, during the games, Jason would sit on the bench. Of course, I say sit lightly during the JV game because he would get up, and by the end of the game, he'd be what I call a tad disheveled. But it would always warm my heart because Jason would like to sit on the bench for the varsity game. And one of our varsity players after the JV game would always go over, straighten Jason's white shirt and black tie out and get him ready for the varsity game. Well, during that season, we had a great season, both on the JV and varsity. We had winning records. We won division titles. Now we were going in the sectional tournament, and we got to the semifinals again for the 5th time in my career, and we get beat again. We are really disappointed, but that wasn't going to stop J-Mac. In the art of perseverance, Jason's great illustration is that in my 30 years as a head coach, I rarely had a young man ever, if they got cut from the team, try out again. But Jason was different. Not only was he going to try out again, but he came to all our off-season workouts. And he was getting better, but I knew it was going to be a real challenge to make the varsity. Well, he tries out his junior year for the varsity team. After a few days of tryouts, I bring him in the office and said, "J-Mac, unfortunately, you're not quite good enough to make the team, but I would like to offer you the team manager's job for the varsity." Well, he quickly accepted that, and he embraced the role because he loved basketball and he loved his teammates, and he was excited for the season. In fact, at our first team meeting, he raises his hand. He says, "Coach, can I share something with the team?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Well, we're going to adopt this slogan. And the slogan is, we're going to stay focused and we're going to help you win your first Section 5 championship." I said, "Well, thank you, Jason." Well, we had another good season his junior year. We went to the semifinal now for the 6th time, and we lose at the buzzer to our crosstown rival, Greece Arcadia. We are devastated, but that's not going to stop J-Mac. He's more bound and determined, the art of perseverance, that never give up mindset. Again, he comes to all our off-season workouts. He's getting better. He is getting a little bit bigger, but he's still very small in stature. His senior year, he's maybe 5'9", now a whopping 120 pounds. When he tries out his senior year, after a few days of tryouts, I bring him in the office. And I turn to him and I look at him. I said, Jason, I've got some good news and some bad news. He turns, he looks at me, up at me, and he says, Coach, tell me the bad news first. I said, well, unfortunately, you're just not quite good enough to make the team. This time he's visibly disappointed. He drops down, his head is sunk. I turned, I says, but I do have some good news. He looks up, he says, yeah, Coach, what do you got in mind? I said, well, for senior night, I'm going to give you a uniform and hopefully get you in the game. Well, he was pretty excited about that uniform idea. In fact, periodically, he would ask me about that uniform. And of course, I define periodically as about every other day. He was really excited. Well, his senior season, we were expected to have a really good team. I thought maybe this is the year we're going to break the barrier and win the Section 5 championship for the first time in my career. Well, the season started great. We won our first 2 games, and I thought, wow, this is going to be the year. Then adversity struck. And it's too long of a story. I do have a book I wrote about it called The Coach in a Miracle. And I'm very proud of this book. And I describe what happened in this story. And I also share all the life lessons that we've learned from that story. But because adversity struck, how many of you ever have been on a team, show me your hand, that didn't get along? Pretty difficult, right? Well, this team was divided. And unfortunately, although we were very talented because of the division and strife, in the next 5 games, we lost 3 of them. And I was beside myself. In fact, at one point, I was considering resigning because we were so much in strife. But my wife and my staff came to me and said, Coach, you always say when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. It's time for you to step up. And they were right. So we were going into a Christmas tournament, really in a tailspin. And at the tournament at Fairport High School, the biggest high school in Rochester, they were really good that year. But I thought we could compete with them, but not the way we were playing. Well, in the opening round in the tournament, we won in a close game. And Fairport, in the other game, won quite easily. So the next day, we had a team meeting. And we had a short practice, which we call a shoot around because it was during Christmas break. Normally at a shoot around, I bring basketballs out, we do some shooting, and go over some plays. But I knew I had to do something different because I do a whole leadership presentation where we delve into this more deeply. So what I did is I sat them down in the bleachers. We didn't bring any basketballs out. And I looked them right in the eyes and I shocked them with my first statement. I said, guys, I don't want to go to the game tonight. And they were kind of shocked. They said, why don't you want to go to the game? I said, well, unless we decide that we're going to be a team, Fairport's going to beat us by 50 points tonight. But the best thing I did for the leadership that day was that I said, well, you know what? I don't have all the answers. But right now, you've got to share how we can bring this team together. And they did. They started to open up and things got much better for us. And we manifested that night by showing a really good team effort. And although we did not beat Fairport, we lost them in overtime and showed what we could do if we played together. Well, that really gave us some momentum. And in the next 9 games, we won 8 of them going into senior night. The senior night was on February 15th. On February 13th, I gave J-Mac his first jersey. It was way too big. He didn't care. In fact, there was a rumor going around school that he slept in it for 2 straight nights. Well, senior night is always a special night for me. It's where we bring the senior basketball players out before the game and bring their parents and guardians and honor each senior. But this night was profoundly touching. to see J-Mac, instead of in his white shirt and black tie, he's donning number 52, and to see him embrace his parents in uniform is a memory I will always cherish. Now the game begins. And we had a good student body following that you saw on the video. They called themselves the Six Men. And at the opening tap, they start chanting, "We want J-Mac, we want J-Mac." I guess I just, in case I forgot, right? Well, I had three thoughts going into the game. Number one, because we had rallied in the season, if we won the game, we actually had a chance to tie for the league championship. Number two, although I wanted to get J-Mac in the game, I knew that I had to get all the other players in before I could put Jason in. And number three, I wanted to get Jason in with enough time so he could score a basket. I thought if he could score a basket, that's a memory he'll cherish the rest of his life. Well, after 3/4 of the game, we had gotten everybody in but J-Mac. With just over 4 minutes to go, I pointed to him. He nearly ran right on the court. He was so excited. And then what happened next profoundly touched my heart and soul. What Jason and I didn't know is one of our parents made these placards, these pictures of Jason's face, and put them on paint sticks. And when Jason entered the game, I'm usually a pretty macho guy. I'm not going to cry at a basketball game, right? Wrong. What I did is I sat down, which I rarely ever do, and tears are rolling down my face. I'm just so touched on how the student body greeted him. I was wondering what was going to happen next. Well, the game now begins with Jason in his first varsity basketball game. The first time we get the ball, they throw it to Jason in the right corner behind the three-point arc. He lets it go. The crowd stands in anticipation. It misses by like 6 feet. Now, I know you're not supposed to pray in the public schools, but I'm praying, dear God, please help him just get one basket. But here's a great lesson for all of us, because one of the things we taught our players is next play. How would you have responded if the first time you played in a game and you missed a shot that badly? Would you try again? Or would you do what Jason did? Show that art of perseverance. Just move on to the next play, because it's going to get better, right? If you are willing to try, and that's something we can all learn from. Well, the next possession, which you didn't see on the video, he actually has a much shorter shot from about 10 feet. And I got to add a little drama because it might be a movie someday. He lets it go. It hits the backboard. It hits the rim and falls off. The crowd groans. I'm thinking, all right, God's starting to listen. We're getting closer. Third possession, we get the ball and Jason gets it at the right wing behind the three-point arc. This time he lets it go. Magic. The ball goes in, the place explodes, and I'm thinking to myself, God must be a basketball fan. Not only has Jason scored, he's got a three-pointer. It can't get any better than this, right? Wrong. For the next 3 minutes, J-Mac turns into his boyhood idol, the late, great Kobe Bryant, and he starts making shot after shot, and the place is going crazier and crazier. And the two things I'll never forget, with about a minute to go, I was still sitting down on the bench, tears still rolling down my face, and I get a tap on my shoulder. I'm shocked. I look behind me. It's J-Mac's mother. She's bawling her eyes out. She gives me a big hug and whispers in my ear, Coach, this is the best gift you could have ever given my son. What would you have done if you heard that? I cried a lot harder. Then this is how the game ends. With under 10 seconds to go, Spencerport, our opponent that night, I want to give kudos to their coach and their players. They were great sports. They score, and our player takes it out of bounds, and normally he throws it right to our point guard. This time he throws it to J-Mac. So J-Mac's actually dribbling down the court. And I'm thinking to myself, well, Spencerport's just going to let him go in and make a short layup to end the game, right? Oh, no. He takes his time. The clock's ticking down. All of a sudden, they look up. It's 3, 2, and Jason pulls up like 2 feet behind the arc. I'm thinking, Jason, don't shoot from there. That's way too far. He launches this rainbow. Swish. I look over, our student body runs on the floor, our players run on the floor. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm living the movie Rudy, but this is really true. And Jason's parents have an interesting dynamic. His dad is 6'6", and his mom is 5'2". And I see this little bitty lady bobbing through the entire mass of people to get to J-Mac, and she gives him a big hug, and he liked that for a moment. Then our players put him up on their shoulders, and he's got the game ball over his head. And at this point, I have no idea how many points he has. And our public address announcer comes on and says that the leading scorer for the Trojans tonight, J-Mac, with 20 points. And with my math brain, I'm thinking, if he'd have played the whole game, he'd have scored 160. That's truly remarkable. But here's another great lesson we learned about teamwork that night. Remember, we had all that strife, and I never asked the players that were on the court with Jason to pass him the ball. Yet in those last 4 minutes, Jason was the only one that shot. Isn't that the essence of teamwork, when you shine the light on another teammate? And that's something we can all think about doing in our lives. How can we make lives better for the people that we care about? I think that's so important, and that's the essence of teamwork. In fact, I still kid Jason to this day. J-Mac, I'm still looking for your first assist. You didn't pass the ball once. But again, I was just so proud of that team, how they did. Now, I was also proud that I thought I did it for all the right reasons. We didn't have any media attention. In fact, the only media was after the game, my responsibility to call it into the local newspaper, our Democrat and Chronicle. When I called it in, I talked to the sports writer and I said, you wouldn't believe what happened. And I shared that Jason scored all these points, and he's normally our team manager, and he's on the autism spectrum. I'm thinking he was going to get a headline the next day in the paper. So I get home, I barely sleep, I'm all excited. I wake up the next morning, and I open up the sports page, and it says Trojans tie for league title. And it mentions a little bit about Jason, but not much. So I was like, I guess it wasn't that big of a deal, although it was a big deal to me, because I got to admit, when I got to school that day, when I started teaching classes, we didn't do much teaching. We watched that game film over and over again. And I remember students coming up to me and say, Coach, this is going to get on ESPN. I said, ESPN? It didn't get a headline in our local newspaper. But we'll talk a little bit about ESPN in a couple of minutes. But of course, the students were right and I was wrong. Well, I thought that's where it was going to end. What I didn't realize is Jason's speech pathologist that had never come to a game, but he had worked with Jason for all 4 years of his high school career. Jason told me he might get in, so he came to the game. He was so touched by what he saw. The next day at school, he called Channel 8 and said, you've got to come and borrow the video from the coach. This is the best thing I've ever seen in sports. They did, and they showed it that night, and they got such a powerful response. The next day, we had 3 local TV stations come in, and then that night, we were going into our February break where students are off from school, but our players are going to come back to practice for that postseason sectional tournament that we're trying to win. Well, Friday night, I get a call from Channel 13's Mike Catalano. He says, Coach, this story's amazing. Would you mind if I send it out nationally? And I said, no, if it can make an impact on the country, I think that'd be wonderful. The whole weekend's quiet. I think that's where it was going to end. So Monday morning, because we're off from school, I'm getting ready for a morning practice. And just before I leave the house, the phone rings. And I pick it up, and it's CBS Evening News. And they normally don't call the house. He said, Coach, we've heard about the game. We're going to come in and do a story about it. Well, they did a story about it later that week, and it just exploded. And then our phones are ringing off the hook. We're trying to get ready for this sectional run, and it's just crazy. And before I close this story and share what happened in that sectional tournament, I would like to open up for any questions that anybody has. I do want to share, I mentioned very briefly that I do have a book that I'm very proud of. It's called The Coach in a Miracle. If you go to my website, it's on a discount right now. I'd be glad to sign it, and we'll throw in a complimentary bookmark for the book. And it shares the whole story and all the life lessons. Also, if you'd like, I have a free newsletter that we give out, you can sign up for, and also a free weekly blog that we do. And certainly if I can ever help you with one of our presentations, I do a longer inspirational presentation. I do a leadership and teamwork presentations and a few other things, as well as a goal setting workshop. If I can ever help you with anything, certainly I'd love to connect, and certainly I'd love to connect with you through social media as well. So let's hook up and do that. So before I close with the story, I would love to open it up to any questions you have. So go ahead and feel free to ask any questions, and then we'll close with the story.
Any questions, people? Beth, you're good at questions. Come on.
Hey, hi, Jim. How are you?
Great, Beth. Good to see you.
Good to see you again, too. What do you think influenced the other teammates and the other team? Because it appeared that the other team cheered for him just as much. What do you think that was about?
I think it was because of Jason himself and the fact that he was so interested in all people. You know, he knew so much about all his teammates that they really became really caring and loving for him. And also, even when we would go play other teams, he would get to know all the kids on all the other teams as well. So, you know, he was just special that way, that he had that unique ability to connect with people. And he really showed that he cared, and that was manifested in the reciprocal way, in the fact that how Spencer Port treated him, and certainly how his teammates did on passing the ball all the time.
Very good. And can I quote you in my newsletter? Essence of teamwork is when you shine a spotlight on another teammate. Can I do that?
You sure can. Be glad to.
Thanks, Jim.
Yep, my pleasure.
Any other questions for Jim? That's it, Jim.
Okay, sounds good. Well, let me close one. Let's take you back then. So we're starting our sectional tournament, and we get a bye in the first round because we are a high seed. So in the second round, which is the quarterfinals, we're hosting the game at Athena on a Saturday. And we win the game pretty easily. And we, after the game, to give you an idea of the media attention, typical post-game interview, People magazine. I mean, it was just crazy. And then after the interview, I said to our athletic director, Randy, we're going back to school on Monday. Do you mind if you get me a sub just in case I got to handle some of this media? He goes, no, not a problem. In fact, take as many days as you need. Give you an idea how much media attention. I would have had a sub for 8 consecutive days. Well, we get back to school on Monday, and Tuesday is our semifinal game, my big obstacle, stumbling block in my coaching career. And we play a great first half. We're up by 10 at halftime. I'm thinking we're finally going to do this. But the third quarter, we implode. We lose the entire lead. And I delve into this more in my leadership talk. But one of the things that I analyzed year in and year out that I realized in my leadership was during the sectional tournament is that I was losing control, that when things didn't go well, I was not being a good model for my team. And that's something I really made a pact before this sectional tournament. I said to myself, no matter what, I'm going to be the person that's under control, be positive, and stay strong through thick and thin. And that's what I did. And I encouraged our team. Our team showed that perseverance. They hung together, the essence of teamwork. We battled back in the fourth quarter and won the game. We're finally going to the sectional 5 finals for the first time in my career. The next 3 days at Athena was like a mini Super Bowl week. We had a Japanese TV station come to the school. It was just pure bedlam. And of course, we're now getting ready for our first Section 5 championship game. This championship game is Saturday at the Blue Cross Arena. How many of you been to the Blue Cross Arena for a game? You see, well, normally for a championship game, usually we get 3, 4, sometimes 5,000 people. We walk in the arena that night, it's sold out. There's over 10,000 people there. And when I walk in, Channel 8 says, can we interview? And they asked me a few questions. Then they said, Coach, you mind if we interview Jason? Well, I'm standing on the floor and Jason's sitting on the first row right behind me. So I turned and I said, J-Mac, Channel 8 wants to interview. He stands up, he says, Coach, it's time to get focused. No media interviews. I thought we're ready for this championship game. That was until the first 4 minutes of that game. We're down 14-3. I'm like, oh boy, that pregame speech didn't work. But again, this time I was a better leader. I kept my composure. I kept encouraging, told them how strong we were and that we were going to be persevering and resilient. We're going to keep it together as a team. And they really responded. We actually we tied the game late in the game. And then in the last possession, we had the ball. Our player dribbled in, he threw it out to one of our other guards, and he makes a 3-pointer. We're up 3. The clock is ticking down. Our opponent comes down, they shoot a shot, they miss it. There's a scramble for the rebound. I'm standing like this, and whack, I got tackled by my JV coach. That indicated we have won the Section 5 championship. We have finally done it. In fact, later that evening, we took our team to a local restaurant, and we actually watched highlights of our game from ESPN. They were actually there videoing our game. And what I'd like to leave you with, remember our 2 essential keys we've focused on today: the essence of teamwork, the ability to shine the light on other people on your team, which we all need to do in brightening this 2021. And number 2 is learning from JMac, that perseverance, the art of perseverance, that never give up mindset. Because I want to finish with this one closing story to challenge you as we continue to move forward so we can have a great 2021. And that is, after that season, Jason and I would get interviewed a lot. And often they would ask Jason, what was the best thing about your senior year, expecting him to talk about his game. But he would always say it was winning the Section 5 championship. But it was the reverse for me, because after that Section 5 championship win, I was mobbed by the media. And one of the first questions they asked me was, Coach, this is your first Section 5 championship. How does this compare to the JMac game? I thought for a moment, then I said, I'm very proud of our team that we are Section 5 champs. It's a great accomplishment. But nothing has ever touched my heart and soul as deeply as the JMac game. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me in coaching. So I want to share this challenge with you as we continue to pursue our dreams in 2021. Remember, the best way to make your dreams come true is to help others make their dreams come true. Thanks for having me. God bless.
Wow.